Aloha and welcome to this module on project management. Project management is an extremely complicated issue in software engineering. So complicated that there are entire semester and year-long courses devoted specifically to project management. On the other hand, in this class, we're going to devote one lecture to it. So we're going to treat it somewhat superficially, you might expect, as a result of that amount of time dedicated to it. But what I'm going to do is kind of provide a heuristic approach to project management that I think will cut through a lot of the mumbo jumbo and give you some simple techniques that you can use that will work pretty well in relatively small groups that nevertheless need to work together efficiently and in a rather decoupled manner. Okay? And I'm going to call this issue-driven project management because we're going to use the issue management system in our project hosting system extensively to kind of guide the management process. And you'll see how this works in a second. Okay, so what we want you to do through this is to gain some insight into some of the complexities, obviously not all the complexities, but some of the complexities involved with organizing a project so that multiple people can work together efficiently and effectively. And then to gain experience with one way of doing it and see that any kind of management process is going to create overhead. It's unavoidable. And the question is, what kind of overhead are you willing to add to your process, and what are the benefits of it? Okay, so basically, when you think about project management, you can't think about one thing. Just like when you think about software development, you can't think about one kind of software. Database management, system development, or database-based applications are extremely different from embedded applications, which are extremely different, from kind of real-time sensor-based applications and so on and so forth. So just as there's many application domains in software development, there's many ways in which one could do project management, and the correct or most efficient and effective approach depends, among other things, on things like how big the team is and what kind of application development you're doing and personalities and customer needs and so forth. So it's extremely complicated to get a grip on what should be appropriate project management. So what I'm going to do is boil it down to some key principles which I don't think are very controversial. Okay? If the project is going well and you have N people on the project, then I'm going to claim that for every person in the project, if the project's being managed well, there is a task for you to work on at all times. Secondly, you know what task it is that you should be working on at all times. You know when you complete a task what the next task should be that you should work on. That rarely, if ever, are you blocked and can't do anything because you're waiting for somebody else to complete their task. That if you do a task, it's actually bringing the project closer to being complete. That you can see the state of progress of the project and its progress towards the goal at all time. And finally, when there are problems in the management, in the set of tasks, in the people, and any of these first 6 things that I've talked about, that becomes clear quickly. Okay? So what I'm going to claim is that, and I don't think this is controversial, that if these things are all true, then the project's being managed reasonably well. Okay? So the question is, well, how do we get there? Okay? And so what I'm going to propose to you to try out this semester is this thing called issue-driven project management, which in my experience is the simplest possible way that you can attempt to succeed and achieve all of those goals that I mentioned on the last slide. So here are the rules for issue-driven project management. 1, you got to divide up the work into tasks. 2, if you're defining a task, it shouldn't take any longer than 2 days for a team member to accomplish. If it takes more than 2 days for them to accomplish it, you got to split that task up into multiple subtasks. Every task that you define is going to be specified by an issue in the project management system. Every issue has one single owner, and then at all times, every person has an open task that they're responsible for completing. When you make any commits to your project, you specify the issue and therefore the task that commit is creating progress toward in its log message. Okay? So what this means is that the set of issues, open, closed, and upcoming, are going to provide a project history. It's going to explain what were the set of tasks that needed to be accomplished to drive this project to completion or to its current state, who worked on each task, when did they work on the task. It's going to specify for each team member, what tasks they work on, what they've completed, what they're working on now. And so basically it's gonna give the state of the progress and its history and its future to a certain extent. Okay? So it turns out that Google Project Hosting, with a little bit of manipulation, can provide a fairly nice visual interface to this issue-driven project management approach. Okay, what you got to do is you've got to select the grid layout for the set of issues, and you select the owner. You select rows in terms of, you select owner as the rows axis and status as the column axis. And if you go into the admin panel for the project that you own, you'll see there's a link for the issues, and you can set up this default right there. Okay, so what does this look like? Okay, it looks like this. So this is from a previous project, and you can see that the issues page is now specified as a grid. I'm looking over here on the right side, grid. It defaults to list normally, but you click this grid thing, you get this. And you can see the rows are the project members, so there's 2 project members in this right now. And then we have 3 columns, accepted, started, and done. The accepted column shows the tasks that are not yet being done by that particular project member, but are accepted as being upcoming tasks for that project member. The started column shows the tasks that each person is currently working on right now, and the done column shows the tasks that each member has completed. Okay, then finally, if you look at the rows, this shows all of the tasks that are either accepted for future work or currently being worked on or previously finished by a project member. Okay, so really pretty easy. Okay, so when doing commits to your project, I'm going to say all, and I'm going to put a little asterisk next to it. All work associated with a project should be captured as a task. Every task is represented as an issue, and therefore every time you do a commit, you should specify the issue that you were working on, and that's reflected in the changes that are being made in that commit. Okay, so if you type the word issue and follow it by a number, Google will auto link the commit message to the issue that you were working on. So it works out very nice. And you can see here in the updates page that this first one, issue 2 up here, you can see that's something that this user is working on but hasn't completed because it doesn't have a cross through it. So issue 1 is already finished, and you can see that by the fact that it's got a strikeout character through it, but you can nevertheless link to it and see what issue 1 was. Okay, so that's a nice way. Now we're representing all our tasks with issues, and then we're linking every time we make a change to the software to a particular issue, and so we've got traceability in our project. Okay, so any work that's done as represented by a commit can be traced back to the issue that you are working on, and that gives you the overall context for how things are happening. Okay, very simple, very lightweight, really, relative to other approaches that are out there. Okay, so the meaning of all star or all asterisk. And, having done a lot of projects over time, okay, realistically speaking, there's always going to be some small little tasks that I'm talking like 5 to 10 minute range, okay, that you end up doing, and you just feel like I'm going to spend as much time documenting this in an issue as I would actually fixing it. Now, if you're doing life critical software or, military applications and so forth, then, there's no such thing as all star. Like every single change you make to the code base is going to have some kind of documentation associated with it. But, we're going to play a little faster and looser with the development process and say, there's certain things that you're going to work on at times that are just tiny little changes. And, they don't really need to be you don't really need to create a new issue for them. Now, if I'd say more than 10% of your commits, so that effectively what that means is you're going to make a commit, and the commit is not going to have an issue associated with it. Okay? So a certain amount of that is fine. If it exceeds, and I'm kind of using, heuristic value, if it exceeds 10%, so if more than 1 out of 10 of your commits are not associated with an issue, then that starts to mean that there's a significant amount of your development process that you're not documenting. Okay? And that means you're not doing a good job of specifying the set of tasks and issues that need to be done in order that it cover at least 90% of the work. And I think at 90% of the work, that's a reasonable goal to strive for. Okay? All right, so how do you do this? Well, one thing is you don't try to set up the entire set of issues at once. Okay, I mean, you can try, but it's very unlikely that you're going to hit it square on the head. Instead, the best way to do this, the most efficient way to do this, is to meet every couple of days with your team. Best way to do it is face-to-face, but you could have a Skype chat session if you wanted, and do something virtually. But have these meetings where everybody's looking at this issue page, and you're checking to make sure that the issue page is actually reflecting what it is you're doing now and what it is you think you need to do for the next 1 to 2 days, or maybe 3 to 4 days. So you don't have to look ahead very far. Look ahead 3 to 4 days maximum at a time when you're doing this. Okay? And you want to look ahead just far enough that no one ever really completes all of their issues. Okay, and is waiting till the next meeting to actually do something. So you want to make sure everybody's always got enough upcoming issues that they're good for the next few days. Okay, so one of the kind of the aspects of this particular approach is that it requires the team to get together pretty frequently to manage the set of tasks and make sure that they're good. And in fact, this is not anything abnormal. There's this notion of a stand-up meeting as part of the agile development methodologies that specifies that every single morning you get together, and it should be for 5 minutes essentially, and thus the term stand-up meeting. It's got to be quick enough that you don't have to sit down to have the meeting. But having this frequent interaction with group members, whereby you make sure everybody's on the same page, is a very common part of modern software development management practices. Okay, so I'm not saying that you need to have a stand-up meeting, but I am saying that you need every couple of days anyway to kind of coordinate and manage this list. Now, you might ask yourself, this seems crazy. We need to have kind of a more top-level perspective. Let's say that the project needs to go on for 6 months. If you're only thinking 1 or 2 days ahead of time at any one time, that just seems like you may end up with something entirely wrong. And I agree with that. If for projects that have for big projects that are going to take months or years to complete, you need to have yet another kind of project, another management or design layer on top of this that may take this big project of 6 months or a year and reduce it to a set of milestones, or version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, which incrementally build up the functionality. Okay, and so normally these releases, it's commonly 4 to 6 weeks, for one of these releases. But once you've done that, once you're saying, okay, here's a 4-week project, okay, and you've scoped it down to that point, then once everybody's kind of on board with the scope of the 4-week project, then actually you can shift to kind of like, okay, well, we got a month to do X, let's look ahead a week, and that's actually a quarter of the project, and you can kind of devolve into this mode of just a few day look ahead pretty gracefully, as long as you've got milestones that are no more than 4 to 6 weeks at a time. If your milestone is 6 months off and you don't have anything intermediate between them, then definitely you've got problems that this particular approach won't solve. Okay. All right. So if you're practicing this IDPM methodology, there should always be a task for you to work on. You should always know what tasks that you need to work on, because you just have to look it up. When you're done with a task, you know what to work on next, because you can look at the board and see what you've accepted. And you should be rarely blocked waiting for someone else, because if you become blocked, then there should be a meeting in a couple of days where you find out how it is, the team decides how it is that blocking can be unblocked. Okay? If you've designed the set of tasks correctly, then completing the task is actually creating forward movement towards completion. Obviously, the state of the project is visible to everybody, because you can just go to Google Project Hosting and seeing it. And then breakdowns in project management can be recognized by everyone quickly, because you're going to either see that there's someone in the issue list that doesn't have any tasks that they're working on, or has no upcoming tasks, or has not completed any task. And so it's kind of hard for to not be able to tell what's going on, at least to some extent. All right, so that's my little overview of issue-driven project management. I am excited for you guys to try it out, see what you think, and I'll talk to you soon.